A strain on the coroner's office, not from COVID, from drug overdoses. People are anxious to get in line for Friday's new vaccine groups. There is one way that you really don't want to do it. And a natural harmony between bringing live music back to a city that needs it and quickly supporting musicians who can't hang on without a paycheck much longer. All that is next. So many people have died from drug overdoses in Denver, the medical examiner's office was having difficulty keeping up with cases. To bring on more people to deal with the demands from a growing city and a growing problem. It reached an alarming new level in 2020. Here's Nusha Roy.
Jim Caruso talks with families after a loved one dies from an overdose.
Son or daughter or husband or wife thought they were buying something else. Fentanyl is often passed off as oxycodone.
It's happening more and more.
Fentanyl deaths in Denver doubled between 2018 and 2019.
And then tripled between 2019 to 2020 with 156 fentanyl-related overdose deaths. It's been putting pressure on Caruso's team at the Denver Medical Examiner's Office.
Just worked harder and longer.
Until it just wasn't sustainable anymore.
We were hitting our limits.
They had to start adding to their staff for a couple of reasons. Denver is growing, and with that comes homicides and car crashes. And then there are overdose deaths that have been going up for several years.
It plays a big role in our staffing needs.
Colorado hit a record-breaking number of overdose deaths last year. Every expert we have talked to is pointing to fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid and a powerful player in this problem. And it's showing up in Colorado a lot more.
When DEA and health departments and doctors got together and said we're prescribing way too many opioids, the people that were addicted to these had to turn elsewhere.
This is law enforcement's main message, that people have been buying what they think are prescription pills, but are actually fake, laced with fentanyl, but they have no idea that's the case.
Cheaper and more prevalent.
In Denver alone, they are seizing more pills.
Tens of thousands of pills seized at one time.
While in Denver, fentanyl-related overdoses have recently killed a lot of people 20 to 40 years old.
Pediatric deaths really bother me.
It's also killing kids who are still in high school.
5 or 6 that I can think of off the top of my head. Parents need to just be very aware.
This is definitely an issue that is crossing socioeconomic lines. It's impacting communities across the board in Colorado. And the other thing to keep in mind is just what the impact of what life has been like in the last year on this issue. So I really want to quickly touch on naloxone, which can help save a person's life during an overdose, and how easy it can be to get it. I actually did this a while back, Kyle. I just walked into a Walgreens one day, middle of the day, asked for a naloxone kit. They walked me through right there and then in maybe 5 minutes on how to use it, and I've had that kit with me ever since.
It's really empowering to know that that the ability to deliver naloxone is that close. We can just go ask pharmacists; they'll walk you through it. That's really good to know. Hey, I'm curious, Nusha. We talked about right off the top impact of COVID, and that COVID was not driving the strain on the coroner's office, even with the increase in the total number of deaths in the community.
Yeah, so I asked for a little bit more, right, because that was the first thing that kind of came to mind. And, you know, the coroner was saying it's still kind of a small impact because a lot of the deaths were happening in nursing homes or under the care of a doctor or at a hospital. So an autopsy through his office was not needed. And so that's how and why they're saying that so much of this issue has to do both with how big Denver is getting and then the overdoses as well. And they're actually waiting for another person to join their team. They're hoping over the summer.
All right, Anusha Roy, thank you very much. Let's take a quick look at the state of COVID in our state right now. 341 people are currently hospitalized. That's down 14 patients from the day before, but down just 35 from this time last week. A clear slowing in our rapid drop in hospitalizations. 16.4% of Coloradans have received one dose of the COVID vaccine. That's 947,000 people. More than half of them have gotten their second dose. People who become eligible for the shot on Friday still are not allowed to sign up with every provider. And some of you have been asking us about a suggested workaround that's floating around online. Beware the temptation to fudge your numbers to get in line a little early. Here's Steve Steger.
You remember Sarah Gomez Marwitz. You met her in early February when we told you Sarah had another nickname, the Vaccine Appointment Whisperer. She's helped so many people since then.
I don't know.
She's lost count. And things have gotten better since then.
Still a bit tricky to find an appointment, but there's a lot more providers. There's a lot more availability.
Sarah says the search has gotten simpler.
And I've been involved trying to help people find appointments since early part of January. So things are much, much better now.
Karen Tonso agrees. Yet, just because appointments are out there, it doesn't mean getting one is easy. A topic dominating the message boards of the appointment searchers since last week, this new group opening up on Friday. They want appointments, but some can't sign up.
A lot of the providers still haven't updated their websites.
What worries both Sarah and Karen is the suggestion they have seen from others that people who are going to be eligible anyway just lie about their qualifications to get an appointment.
I'm concerned that there's some individuals who are pushing it a little hard, and I worry that it keeps people out.
If you are trying to bypass the screens to make an appointment, there is a chance that your appointment is going to be canceled.
The governor told those folks they'll be able to sign up starting Friday if they can't already. Most of the pharmacies tell us the same, that they're working on it. As for Karen and Sarah, they hope people have an easier experience this time around, and they will still be there to help.
The systems aren't created equal. They are frustrating, and they can be difficult to navigate.
I think there's always going to be a need for quite some time.
So this is serious business. Sarah says that she has actually seen appointments canceled when people admit that they gave inaccurate information. So no funny business there. I asked her today if she still thinks that there will be a need for people like her, the helpers out there as we move forward. She says it's likely going to be a different need. So as the population that's eligible for the vaccine is more and more comfortable with technology, she sees the need in the folks who don't have a lot of time on their hands to spend on the computer searching out appointments. Just because there's a limited availability still, it's going to be a struggle for a lot of folks.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Changing system and changing challenges. Steve, I want us to revel in a next first. Not in 4 years of the program have we received a question via email. This came in from Hank and Parker. The exact moment you started your report, answering Hank's question about 60 to 64 signups before Friday. So we're going to print you out an award or something.
That's like a next question. Yeah, it's a next question in real time. I love it.
Wow. How about that? Hank, consider your question answered. Thank you, Steve. Hey, the lead investigator into Elijah McClain's death in Aurora in 2019 has now been reassigned to a different unit. Before you take that as some sign that Aurora police are taking immediate action based on that outside investigation that says that APD botched the case, from the physical altercation to the investigation itself, the police chief came out today to specifically say that she stands by this particular investigator and there's no internal investigation. The investigation into McClain's death, which was led by now reassigned Detective Matt Ingwe, was slammed by the outside investigators as looking for a way to get those APD officers off the hook, not to hold them accountable and really question them about what happened with Elijah McClain prior to his death. The FBI, grand jury, continue to look into that case. Wednesdays are my favorite day around here. Same for Sharon Ritzman, who watched this program from Golden. So much so that Sharon's family asked in her obituary recently that people consider giving to our weekly Word of Thanks micro-giving campaigns. Sharon lived a life full of adventures with her family and volunteer activities, often tied to the medical community. I reached out and asked Sharon's family if they would help pick this week's featured nonprofit, something that would have made Sharon smile. That's how we learned about Epic Experience, based in Arvada. Sharon supported their work, and this week we can too. Epic Experience hosts week-long adventure camps for adult cancer survivors. The idea is to strengthen their mental health and to instantly connect them with a growing network of cancer survivors who can help them explore life beyond cancer. Sharon's daughter, Michelle, went on an Epic Experience camp. That's her on the right there. In fact, Michelle went back to school to become a nurse, to work with families facing cancer. This is a cause that is very near and dear to that entire family. Epic Experience is gearing up for a return to in-person camps this year, while they're also simultaneously launching a new virtual reality getaway for people who are in cancer treatment, a chance to escape the confines of a treatment center. The folks who run this small nonprofit tell me that they have 8 times as many cancer survivors apply to go to these no-cost camps than they have available spots and funding. So our donations are going to allow this nonprofit to offer these experiences to even more cancer survivors in our community. Text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. I'll send you that link to donate. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 that come in. We can do some pretty mighty things $5 at a time. Just last week, your donations passed the $3 million mark. Cancer's touched my family. Chances are cancer has touched your family as well. Tonight, in celebration of the life of Sharon Ritzman, let's provide even more cancer survivors in our community a life-changing experience.
This was a concept that actually started in Scotland.
Colorado's recycling an idea to let the public name snowplows and track them online, but not us adults. Our ideas would be too childish, so let's give the kids a chance. Parents, you'll know how we're about to hijack this thing. And the return of live music in a city that's hungry for it. Next. This March 5th, a new round of people will be eligible for the COVID vaccine. Last March 5th, 2020, Colorado had its first positive case of the virus. It's been a year. On March 3rd of last year, 1 year ago today, we knew that COVID was in our community, even if it had not officially been confirmed at this point. This time last year, we were really focused on testing. People were scrambling to figure out where they could get tested if they were sick, and we asked the governor this day a year ago whether Colorado was going to follow New York's lead in directing insurers not to charge people for COVID-related care. Our testing numbers at that time a year ago seem tiny now.
The capacity for the 160-day is new. Up until that was in place at the state lab, we had conducted roughly 24 tests, and those were not. We were not able to do those in-house in our lab. Now we have that capacity.
Remember people standing next to each other. That used to be a thing. 160 tests a day at that point. Colorado ramped it up to 65,000 tests a day at our highest point in November. Yesterday, Colorado did about 30,000 tests. 1 year ago today, we also looked back on the flu pandemic of 1918 and how Gunnison managed to avoid the worst of us. Steve Steger brought us that.
It was well known that they didn't want people there.
So sequestered, Gunnison has become a case study on preventing outbreaks.
There were barricades and signs at the entry roads into the county saying basically drive through, do not stop or you'll get arrested.
Dr. Alex Navarro did the case study for the University of Michigan. He found the cancellation of public events, the mandated quarantines, and the literal barricades, they really did work.
We did everything but the barricades, I guess. During the first 2 waves of the flu pandemic a century ago, Gunnison, walled off from the outside world, only saw 2 cases. That flu pandemic of 1918 killed an estimated 675,000 Americans. COVID-19 has killed 515,000 Americans, including more than 6,000 Coloradans.
Well, our March streak of sunshine and 60s is coming to an end tonight with a storm headed into southern Colorado. The mountains will see snow first, and Denver might actually see rain before the snow tomorrow. Anywhere from about 5 to 8 inches of snow in the mountains, with 3 to 6 for areas south of Denver under a winter weather advisory. Maybe an inch on the grass here in the city, but rain, yeah, not a terribly cold storm. Partly cloudy and 31 tonight. Tomorrow, our high in the 40s. Rain changing to snow during the afternoon, and then the storm's out of here tomorrow night. Beautiful weather on Friday, and then look at your weekend. Sunshine and 60s all the way into Monday of next week.
State of Colorado's announced a competition to come up with cute names for its snowplows. Now, originally it was unclear if CDOT was going to name all 3 of its snowplows or just the one. If this idea sounds familiar, it's because Minnesota just finished a competition like this and got national attention for it. Minnesota just ripped the idea off from Scotland, where they let the public name the whole plow fleet there. You can follow them around online when it snows. Adults, we cannot be trusted to come up with names for things because we will suggest dirty names. Or, Plowy McPlowface, which is just, that's the name that we put on everything. That stopped being funny a long time ago. So Colorado's contest to name the plows is only for elementary school children. Parents, you know what this means. This is about the children and about their choice. So just keep repeating your choice for the plow names until your child begrudgingly accepts it as their own idea. Submit that name in the plow contest, and voila, you just named one of CDOT's 3 snowplows.
So when we honor jazz and we lift up jazz, we're also honoring Black history and Black musicians from the past century.
It's about much more than just a much-needed paycheck for struggling musicians. It's about bringing live music back to Denver, celebrating its past, present, and future. Next. Jazz is the soundtrack of Denver's past, and with musicians and live venues really struggling during the pandemic, there's a focus on keeping jazz alive for Denver's future.
It's great to grow a city, but let's remember the foundation that got us to this point, and let's do that by honoring and educating along the way.
And then one more verse, and that's the end.
Desiree Gold.
Okay. All right, so.
Just the most talented band. I've booked them a few times in Denver.
Gertie Harris is the mind behind this event and this whole series, and I'm so appreciative of her.
So this, for me, is pure joy.
It's flying high, you know how I feel. Tonight we are kicking off Gin and Jazz series. It's a tribute to the history of the Five Points jazz scene.
When you come to an event, there's more than just music and drink specials. There's actually stuff that you can take with you and do in the community. We'll have programming through the screens and as well as QR codes on tables that people can scan to, understand the history and educate themselves about what happened here.
When I think of jazz music, I think of Black musicians specifically because it's a Black genre. So when we honor jazz and we lift up jazz, we're also honoring Black history and Black musicians from the past century.
We want to book artists from marginalized communities that represent, like Desiree said, Black artists, like the people that really were here first. We need to be better stewards of the past. Any way that we can kind of integrate that sort of component into any kind of programming that happens in the city is just a bonus.
That story from our photojournalist Mike Grady. We lost a dedicated Next viewer and Word of Thanks contributor last month. Her family helped us choose this week's Word of Thanks cause as you build on $3 million raised for Colorado's small to mid-sized nonprofits. That's next. Epic Experience, a nonprofit out of Arvada, hosts week-long outdoor adventure camps for cancer survivors in our community. It's a free experience for them so they can build community with other survivors and plan out life beyond cancer. For every person that they're able to offer this free experience to, there are 7 more applicants they have to turn away because they don't have the funding. You can help with that. Text thanks to 303-871-1491. You can join me and a bunch of other Next viewers in donating. We're going to support Epic Experience's work this week in celebration of the life of Sharon Ritzman. See you next time.